Good morning, and I am Chastity. I am owner-operator of Basics Assistance Dogs. Well, these are our training videos. We're getting together a Basics Assistance foster family online training that our foster families will go through, and then once they've completed, this is the first of 7 videos. Once they've completed these 7 videos, they will then do a video conference with me, and we'll go over the trainings that they have received just to ensure that they if they have any questions and to make sure that they have complete understanding. And then once they complete that, they will receive a certificate of being a Basics Assistance foster family and certified trained, and then they will be placed on a list for to be available for future candidates that we will be training for either service, therapy, or emotional support. And yes, you don't need to train an emotional support dog, but as I'm sure all of us have heard, there are emotional support dogs that are in the public that have no training and have not behaved correctly. So we do train emotional support dogs by the AKC Canine Good Citizen Standards to ensure that our emotional support dogs have some kind of training. So that is my disclaimer for that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started on video 1, and it is dog behaviors and what they mean. Now, this is not written by me. It's written by Tamara Pecco back in March 30th of 2018, but I found it so complete and thorough that it is the basis of what I used to be able to go over a lot of different behaviors and training, and then I added our Basics Assistance dog thoughts and training into it. Okay, so here we go, and it starts with: dogs have learned to live with humans and like to please us, but we still have to train them to avoid some of their more destructive behaviors. When we do not train them, then we just coexist with them, and pretty much somebody has to be in charge, and if you're not, then they will be. So training is important. Pet behavior problems. There is aggression and scavenging are the 2 most common dog behavior problems. There are many pet habits that owners also consider harmful or annoying, yet these 2 are the most dangerous for your pooch and the people and animals around them. So, aggression. Food aggression, aggression towards being on leash or being corrected or directed with a correction collar, aggression towards any kind of direction, or scavenging, not teaching to leave it if they see something on the ground and not being able to give a command of leave it and have them obey that. As a first step, if the issue is new and unusual in your dog's routine, you should consider taking your pooch to the vet to rule out any health problems. Because if there is aggression all of a sudden or scavenging all of a sudden when there wasn't, that could be a medical issue. So it's also important to note that some behaviors considered major for some owners are non-issues for others. I totally understand that in my home, if something's on the ground that the dog could eat, and they walk by and they try to, my direction is leave it. I don't want my dog eating off the floor because I train for service and I can't have them eating off the floor in a restaurant. Now, there are other dogs in other homes that are pets, and those pets are allowed to eat off the floor in the home because they use them as, like a little broom and come get it, and they eat it off the floor, and that's fine. I'm not saying all dogs have to act the same. I'm saying for us as Basics Assistance dogs, while they're in our foster care, we prefer to teach the word leave it to food that is left on the floor. And when we place them in a home with another family that wants that assistance dog or trained pet, then they can retrain them if they want them to eat it off the floor. That's all that means. And as far as aggression, we do not allow aggression. We definitely correct aggression immediately. We correct, we redirect, we praise calm behavior. And so aggression is not something we ignore. We definitely are immediate in the 1.5 seconds that we will talk about later of dealing with those problems. Okay, for example, some owners would never let their dog sleep in bed with them, while others prefer it. We do have some of our clients that have night terrors that need an assistance dog for that. We recommend that, of course, you can have your dog in the bed with you. You can have the dog in the bed with you the first day if you keep it tethered to something so that it understands that that is the only spot that it could be in. Because until it learns your routine, it doesn't know what it can and cannot do. So we do recommend that, yes, if that's a need for you, absolutely. If it's not, we do recommend crating the dog during the nighttime so they have a safe den spot to be in during a time when you're not with them and watching them, so that they know what's expected of them. Otherwise, then they are out all night and don't know what's expected of them. And then when they get into something, it's really not their fault because we've set them up for failure. So some would rather their dogs didn't bark. We do not do bark. We do no bark. So if there is whining, if there is whimpering, I had a client text me just the other day, the dog is starting to kind of whine, started, and then it turned into, I told her, if you don't correct the whine, it will turn into howling, and howling will turn into barking, and it's much harder to correct barking as opposed to a small whimper. So that means that you might have to get a correction collar. You might have to have it on the dog, which she's still within her 30 days, so she should already have the correction collar on the dog. But when you get your own dog, you do whatever you'd like in your own home. But within the 30 days, we recommend that the dog is on correction collar and leash with you, so that if a direction needs to be given when the dog is whimpering, within 1.5 seconds of them whimpering, it's a no bark with a tap on the correction collar so that they understand that that's not okay. And then when they're quiet 5 seconds later still, then it's good boy or good girl. So then they understand quiet and still is a good behavior, and whimpering and howling and barking is not a good behavior. Otherwise, how will they know that? We don't speak dog, they don't speak human, right? So now going on to some common dog behaviors and symptoms. So the cause of bad destructive behavior in dogs can be many, ranging from boredom, malnutrition, injury, or illness. Sometimes we send the wrong signals, thinking we're doing the right thing. So boredom. Your dog may be bored. Okay, well, if your dog is tethered to you for the first 30 days and walking around with you, doing your routine, the dog's not going to be bored. If you're a foster, the dog is to be tethered to you at all times, period. There is not a moment in time when the dog should just be wandering about, period. Because they need to learn how it is to be on leash. Because some dogs will go as service or assistance and need to be tethered almost all the time. So if they don't acclimate to that, we are setting them up for failure. So all our foster families need to have their dogs tethered to them at all times. But as a client that becomes the handler of one of our new candidates, we recommend the 30 days. Boredom. They can't be bored if we are giving them a task, and we should be giving them a task of something to do. If they don't have anything to do, they should be in a place that's safe for them, either a kennel where they're crated and they're on pause until training can resume, or they're with you, right? So malnutrition, we should definitely be checking that if the behavior or symptoms of what they're acting like is directly related to their nutrition. Are they eating okay? Is there something wrong with their teeth? So we need to be checking those things if behavior is not the same as it's been. Injury. There could always be an injury. They walk around on their paws. So we need to check their paws. We need to check their teeth. Illness. Some kind of illness that we don't see. And we will go over the top 10 illnesses of a dog in another video, but that is important to be on lookout for the top 10 things that could be wrong with a dog. So we could be sending wrong signals. So how could we do that? For example, if your dog is growling or barking at another dog, you may try to pick them up or pet them. And you might think, well, of course, that's a good behavior, right? Well, if you do this, your dog thinks it's okay and even desirable to act aggressively because you rewarded them for it. Did you realize that? So you're being approached by a growling or barking dog, and you say, it's okay, no worries, it's okay. Or you pick them up and you hold them really tight, it's okay. So what you just told them is, When something is growling and barking, that's a good thing because my owner just petted me and they just picked me up and gave me hugs. So that's good. And I'm pretty sure that's not what you meant. But again, you don't speak dog and they don't speak human. So we need to make sure that our actions are backing up our words, right? So we want to do, what would be the direction then? What would be the training tip that we would give you in that situation? You have your candidate foster family, or you have your new dog, new handler client, and you are out there and you have a growling, barking dog approaching you. You can walk the other direction, or you can put your dog in a controlled sit stay. And when that dog is out of reach, obviously you need to keep your dog down and safe, and you need to do the best you can to protect your dog. But if in the event that they're ongoing, then do, of course. Flight is always necessary. We don't want ourselves to be hurt or the dogs. But you can walk the other direction. You need to show that you're in control. If you show that you are fearful or that you are not in control of this situation, then you are not the alpha. So when that situation presents itself again, the dog will understand, my owner can't handle this situation, I need to. And then they will step up to growl and be aggressive, right? And to bark. So we need to show we're in control. We need to always be on the lookout for other dogs and handlers that do not control their dogs. And we need to do every effort in our part to be able to be in control of that situation. Obviously, things will happen that are outside of our control, and we have to do the best we can with what we have at that moment, right? So another one is the same goes for dogs whining, barking, howling to get our attention. If you react to this behavior with starting to talk to the dog, playing with them, giving them food, the behavior will continue. I saw, we picked up a candidate the other day, and the dog was shaking a little bit, and they said, oh, she's so scared, she's so scared. Are you scared, baby? Are you scared? And she was petting her, and she was trying to make her feel okay with this voice, you hear my voice? Oh, it's okay, baby, it's okay, no worries, no worries. And what that was doing was causing the dog to shake more. Because what she was saying with her voice and petting action is, shaking is good. It's okay. I understand. I'm here for you. Which is not okay. And it's not what we want. And we don't want them to shake. What we need to do is put them in a controlled sit, maybe right between your feet. You could sit them right there. You could be standing and have the dog sitting right between your feet. And put them in a controlled sit and say, leave it, or okay, and just have them sit. Control them, put them in a sit, and have them sitting there. And when they're sitting there for that 5 seconds and you got them to calm down, good boy, good girl. So they understand, okay, if I calm down and I'm in a sit, then I'm good. If I'm not, I'm told to sit, and it's not a good thing. I'm giving a correction and I'm told to sit. So we're giving them the correct signals as opposed to praising them for shaking. We don't want that behavior, so we don't want to praise that behavior, right? So going over how and when we're supposed to discipline, okay? So we can't call to them to discipline them. That is why we recommend that they are on leash for the first 30 days. And 30 days is a guess. It is not an exact moment of time. The 30 days is, they could be 2 weeks or they could be 45 days or more. I don't know. The 30 days is a guesstimate of how long it may take to get the candidate able to adapt to your routine, able to respond to your words without being given any direction on leash, okay? Any direction that needs to be given within 1.5 seconds of it happening. Mid-bark, having an accident in the house. Anything that you need to correct, you need to do it within 1.5 seconds of it happening. Otherwise, your correction has nothing to do with their behavior. You're just randomly doing something that has nothing to do with what they did. They have no idea why you did what you did. Nose in potty. I know that's a big one. People like to rub their dog's nose in the potty and say, look, this is bad, bad, bad. And then throw them outside where they're supposed to go potty and say, that's good, good, good. And that actually doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, it may make you feel better, but it doesn't teach the dog anything other than you're kind of nutty because they don't understand why you did what you did. So that's not what we need to do. If your candidate has an accident in the house and literally if the candidate is tethered to you, if the dog is tethered to you in a working position at all times in the home for the first 30 days until they are obeying your voice commands, it is almost impossible for the dog to have an accident in the house. I very rarely have had that happen. The only times I've had that happen is if a dog will literally go as they're walking. I've had that happen. Or if the dog will actually go in a sitting position. Both of those are extremely rare. To have a dog that will sit and then pee on itself is very rare. That's why we tend to put the dog in a sit position, because almost always the dog will never just sit there and pee on itself. If that's the case, there is more correction issues that are than just having them sit and stay. You're needing to really make sure that you are guiding and directing them to gut potty and get busy outside on leash, so you know when they're getting busy. So nose in the potty doesn't work. Ignoring is allowing, correcting is teaching. So another one of the teaching things out there is just ignore that behavior. If you don't like that behavior, just ignore it and it'll go away. I've had 4 kids in 5 years. If I ignored behavior, they would have ran out in the street and died. Okay, I'm just saying, you can't ignore bad behavior. Ignored behavior does not go away. Ignored behavior increases and grows to the point of being where you can't stand this dog anymore, and that's why dogs end up in the shelter. And when we get them from the shelter and they have the laundry list of, oh, the dog barks and the dog digs and the dog jumps fences, I'm not worried about those. I'm not worried about those. You know why? Because we don't allow it. So therefore, that's never an issue. So ignoring is allowing bad behavior. Correcting is teaching good behavior. We are in the process of wanting to teach good behavior. We cannot teach good behavior if we can't catch the dog to correct it. Okay? That's why it needs to be on leash. If we can't catch the dog, then we can't correct the dog. Then we are failing the dog. And our goal at Basics Assistance Dogs is to train rescues and rehomes for service and therapy and to be good emotional support dogs. And we can't do that if we can't correct them within the 1.5 seconds necessary to train them, right? Alrighty, so there is some, let me make sure. Correction is not lasting pain. Okay, so some people may have a propensity to cause pain. That is long lasting. That is not our intent either. Okay, we do use a correction chain. We do use a correcting collar. We do use a head halter. We do not cause lasting pain. None of the correction we give leaves lasting marks on the dog that will cause them to impact their health, okay? All the correction given is instantaneous. No, leave it. It's an instantaneous, oh, I shouldn't do that, right? As opposed to hanging your dog on the fence or something, or kicking the dog, or throwing the dog, or something like that. So none of the correction should leave lasting pain. That is not what we're endorsing. That is not what we're doing. That is not what we're about, okay? And we need to try to encourage, as a foster family, or for you as a new client and receiver of one of our dogs, we have tried, if there is any ability, to teach the dog to potty on cue. Get busy, get busy. So when we say the words and we are on leash, that they will do that they will get busy outside. Now, if you don't have that ability to train them to do that, and that's not something we teach them, then when you go out, like say you're on travel somewhere, you're going on a vacation and you took the dog, then, and they're only used to going at home in that little spot, then what are they going to do? It's going to take them, and we've had some dogs go 3 days without getting busy before they finally just explode, right? So it's preferable that you try to teach them a cue to get busy. If they are not a dog that gets busy on leash, and we've had some that just refuse, it is always preferable to have some kind of a cable, a tether. We always try to encourage our clients and our fosters to have a cable, not something cloth, but something made of metal, so that you can tether them to something. Maybe if you're out, say you're at a rest area, and they don't like to get busy on leash, well, you could tether them to either a picnic bench or a tree or something, so they have room to roam about. They're not going to chew the tether and get away, and they can get busy. So there are other options, but to teach them nothing but, I threw them in the backyard, I don't know why they didn't get busy. Oh, I don't know if they got busy. Well, it makes it impossible for you to take that dog as public access if you don't know if it got busy. That is the whole point. All of our dogs are trained to be assistance dogs and can be placed as pets. That's the difference. We are not training pets to be assistance dogs unless we're working with an owner. As a team, we're team training with the owner and their dog to become an assistance dog. That is different. When we take in rescues and rehomes, we are training them to be assistance dogs, but they can be placed as pets, which means they have this level of training, but you can use them at this level of training. That's okay. That's what that means. So we are wanting them to be able to get busy on leash or be able to get busy on tether, and so we can pass that on to a future family. So now there is some behavior that's instinctive. Behaviors that are instinctive include digging, chewing, chasing, and rolling in dirt, poop, or dead animals. Okay, those last two, I'm sure that's an instinctive behavior. I don't do that at all. And I don't know why they would be around dead animals. Like, I don't understand that, but maybe in like different parts of the country, like a dead animal could be in your yard and you didn't know it. I don't know. So these make perfect sense for your dog and are natural dog behaviors. So no matter how uncomfortable it might be for you, you can train your dog to minimize or stop these habits, but it won't be easy. And that's what we are helping our clients with, in that we do train to no bark, no dig, no chewing, digging, leave it, no. You can't catch them unless you're watching them. So if they're digging, we say leave it, no. And that's usually just a verbal, because when you say that, they will usually stop. And then it'll give you that 5 seconds to be able to praise them for stopping, and then that's a good boy or girl. Okay? Chewing, and I'm talking chewing, not just things in the home, but chewing on themselves. Dogs tend to like to lick a certain spot and turn it into a hot spot. And then it's, oh my goodness, my dog has this hot spot. What do I do? Well, why don't we just stop them from licking so that they don't create a hot spot? That's what we do with basics assistance dogs. So if we see them licking or itching or gnawing on anything of themselves, it's no different than biting your nails, and it's a bad habit. And so if you stop it immediately when you see it, leave it, no. Usually it's just a verbal even for that. If they don't stop, then it's a correction with leave it. But if once they stop, and you consistently tell them to stop, okay, well then what does that mean? Then they're going to be licking and scratching then when you're asleep, because that should be the only time that you're not with them, right? Or crated, if they're crated. Now, if they're crated for 8 to 10 hours a day and they're licking, well, maybe you need to reevaluate how you're doing something, because I understand people go to work, but there you go. So we give the leave it command so that is not acceptable. They understand. Why do we do that? Well, as an assistance dog, we can't have an assistance dog out at the mall or in a store or at a restaurant and start licking itself. That's not going to work. Scratching at itself. You can't do that. It has to be able to stay in a sit-stay position, right? So we do not encourage or allow that at home. So when we go out, they already understand that they're not allowed to do that. We're setting them up for success, not dooming them for failure by not telling them what we expect, right? Chasing. If you see the dog starting to chase after a bird or chase after a child or chase after whatever, you have to put that dog immediately into a sit and to say, leave it. Now, once you give that and they're able to ignore the behavior, it's a good boy or girl. Now, does that mean that they're not looking at it? No. It means that they are going to stay in the stay position for you. They're adapting to what you want. But yes, they're a dog. They're going to see it and they're going to acknowledge that it's making noise or whatever. I've had dogs that are very reactive to birds. So what did we do to fix that situation? We would take them to a park where there were tons of ducks, and we would put them in a sit-stay position and allow the ducks to swim in the lake and walk around them, and they would have to stay in a sit-stay position and ignore the ducks. How long did we do that? Until they ignored the ducks. Yeah, it's not fun. It's not easy, but it's part of training your dog. And if you want that behavior to be ignored by the dog, then we have to teach them how to ignore the dog. That when the birds come or when kids come running at them and they have to stay in a sit-stay position, that you as the handler are in control and they don't have to be upset, because what they're doing, they're chasing the dog or they're chasing the bird because they're either protecting you or they think that it's okay. Well, if they don't have to protect you and they know it's not okay, then they will stay in the sit-stay position. But if you don't communicate that to them, then they don't know that, right? So we need to be consistent that that is not an okay behavior, and that they know that. Rolling in dirt. We tend to get a lot of white poodle, Maltese, Shih Tzu type of dogs. And quite honestly, I'm positive that they roll in dirt and they end up in shelters or as rehomes, because families just can't stand trying to keep a white dog clean. I get that. I totally do, because I don't like getting them personally because I can't keep them clean. But to minimize the amount of dirt that they are able to dig in and roll in would help with that situation. Right now we have our candidates in my home on rocks, so that's not an issue. Now, if you don't have that available, if you have just a yard of dirt, then you might want to invest in like AstroTurf or something that you can keep the dog out of the dirt, so that until they get past that behavior, you can set them up for success instead of constantly yelling at them for rolling in the dirt, right? Poop or dead animals. Please pick up any dead animals within your dog's reach immediately. No dead animals should be left within a dog's reach ever. Like, that should never be a thing. But poop. Now, okay, I get the poop thing. Like, the dog poops, it's freezing, I don't want to go outside. I get that. If you don't maintain the picking up of the poop on a daily basis, or I know some people even pick it up once it happens, right? Especially if you don't have an enclosed yard that you can have the luxury of just letting it sit, then you don't know when the dog really got busy. So you may put the dog outside, but if it's tethered in an area that already has poop, then how do you know if the dog pooped? Right? And the goal is for you to know when the dog poops and pees. For fosters, the goal is to know when the dog poops or pees so you can take it out into public and know that it's going to be okay because it's already got busy. So that is a thing. All right? We're almost to the end of video 1. Okay, so rolling in the poop. Okay, so uncomfortable. So these make perfect sense for your dog and are natural dog behaviors. No matter how uncomfortable it might be for you, you can train them to not do them. Okay, so what are some bad habits? Bad habits like resource guarding, jumping on people, climbing on furniture, begging for food, clingy behavior, taking over your bed are encouraged by our behavior toward dogs. Now, these behaviors are not allowed with our basics assistance candidates, should not be allowed in our foster families, because they should be on leash at all times, one, in our foster families, and for the first 30 days until they are responsive to your off-call direction, that this should never happen. This is the non-issue. I get this question all the time. My dog jumps on people. Then my dog jumps on me when I walk in the house. Well, is your dog just running around the house when you walk in? Well, yeah. Well, if it wasn't, then it wouldn't jump on you. Just saying. So none of these behaviors happen unless we allow these off-leash behaviors. If you can't verbally tell your dog, no, sit, and it will stop, then it needs to be crated until you teach it to listen to you. That's pretty much it. When the dog learns to listen to you, it can come off leash or out of a crate. When it doesn't, you've literally set this dog up for failure, because if it can't listen to you, then when that door opens or when that kid runs by, it's going to do whatever it wants because it has no off-leash recall, because we haven't taught them that, right? So we are setting our basics assistance dogs up for success that resource guarding, jumping on people, climbing on furniture, begging, clingy, taking over are all not behaviors allowed. They are corrected immediately because the dog is on leash and they're given the command to either leave it or no bark or sit or stay or no or whatever. And if the verbal doesn't work, then we give the correction with the correction collar. And if you don't want your pet on the furniture, you must set clear boundaries and be consistent. None of our assistance dogs should be sitting on furniture. They should all be sitting on the floor in a sit-stay position between the handler's feet for our foster families. For our families, when they adopt our candidates, you could do whatever you want. Just understand, they may not immediately jump up on the couch because they have been trained not to. So you have to train them. It's okay. So they understand that, okay? It is also essential that you provide your pooch the comfort, safety, and enough food so that they won't have to claim it for themselves. So if you don't feed them enough, and we feed according to the standards of what a dog needs to eat, the basic food standards, and we feed them that, and we give them adequate water according to their weight size, then they don't need any more food or water during the day. We feel that if we love them, we will give them treats, because we feel when we get chocolates or get ice cream or get all those wonderful treats that we're loved, right? Well, giving those things to our dog causes obesity. And if you're trying to raise an assistance dog, as our fosters are, we don't need to try and increase obesity. We need to give them their basic needs. That's why we're basics assistance dogs, giving them their basics needs. And if the families that adopt them decide to be able to do that, then that's fine. But we, as fosters, do not encourage treats. We do not encourage treats for good behavior, because the dog shouldn't only listen to you because they're going to get something. They should listen to you because you said it. Okay? Treats are for learning. You could put it in a learning toy and show them how to do something, and it stimulates their mind. That's a great thing. But if they are only going to listen to you because you got something in your hand, that's a problem, because one day you may not have anything in your hand, and then they're not going to listen to you, and that's the day something bad could happen. So, let's see. Basics on-leash correction in 1.5 seconds. Again, we need to redirect. We need to praise after the 5 seconds. We need to teach them to leave it for unwanted behavior. And then if needed, you need to we do the nose flick. If the verbal, leave it, or no bark, if the correction collar, no bark, doesn't work, then we do a nose flick. I've flicked a nose on a dog. I know. I don't know if that just drives you up the wall, but I've done that because sometimes they are just so in a path that they can't focus, and you need to break them out. And so I have done that. Correction, we need to first use our voice. We need to second use a leash correction. We need to third give a corrective tap with flicking. And if that still doesn't work and they're not listening, then we go into isolation. And that would be when they're just not following directions at all, and you're going to put them in a kennel. And we recommend covering our kennels, and because the less stimulation the dog has, the less likely they are to interact with what's going on around them, and it's setting them up for success. Instead of sitting them in the middle of a room and they could see everything and expecting them not to make any sound to respond to that's not setting them up for success. That's why we like it when it's all dark in our room. They like it that way too. It helps them to calm down, right? Okay. Health issues. Health conditions can also cause your dog to act out, become aggressive, or growl and bite. Separation anxiety is a big problem for some owners. Their dogs mess up their home and destroy things while they're home alone. Okay. Separation anxiety. If your dog acts out, is aggressive, growls, or destroys your house while you're not home, then your dog should not be out when you're not home. Don't allow your dog to run around your house when you're not home if they have these issues. You're just setting them up for failure and yourself up to be angry and them to end up somewhere else because you can't stand them. Why would you do that? let's think about this. If they're going to destroy our home, then let's leave them in a place where they're not going to destroy our home. If they're going to act out and be aggressive and growl and bite, then those health conditions may be causing that. We need to make sure that they're healthy. But if there's no health conditions causing that, then those things need to be corrected, okay? Excessive licking, eating poop, defecating, and urinating indoors can also be signs of illness and injury. First, you need to make sure that they're healthy. If they are healthy, then those things need to be corrected immediately, okay? Basics assistance dogs are in good health by the top 10 health concerns for dogs, and we will go over that in a later video, but we do go over that in our contract with our families. Anxiety destruction can be prevented by kenneling, using a cable on the dog through the kennel, and practicing. So I do, and I recommend to my fosters that they put the dog in a kennel, that they also tether the dog in the kennel. Now, it's a loose tether. It's not tight by any means, but it gives you a correction ability to the dog outside of the kennel. So the tether is ran outside of the kennel. The dog is covered. And so if that's the case, then what happens is you're able to actually give a correction if that dog barks or is acting out in the kennel, because you have the tether outside the kennel. And you can practice that when you're home. So when you're not home, hopefully that behavior is curbed. We've also used, and I've used some of those anti-bark things that you can buy on Amazon. You could set it outside for the dog that's barking next door, or even in your home, that it's set right in front of the dog so that if the dog starts barking, it emits a sound. I'm not talking about the ones that spit some kind of stuff at them or anything. I'm just talking about the sound ones. And if it happens to happen immediately, then it could curb their barking when you're not there. That's just a suggestion. You could use it however you want. No bark while home with correction is recommended. You should try to use that sometimes when you're at home and practice it when you're there, so that when you're not there, it's something that they're familiar with, right? They shouldn't lick, poop, or potty. That's prevented by being on leash for the first 30 days and giving the correction. Now, if that happens after the 30 days, well, then guess what? You need to do a refresher course. And that means that you're back on a 30-day regimen. Now, does it have to be 30 days? Well, maybe not. Maybe within the first week or so, they get that they're not listening and they recorrect their behavior. It doesn't have to be 30 days, but you need to get them back on leash and back in training, because their behavior has strayed from what you desire, right? Because there's no other way for you to communicate to them or redirect if you're not connected to them, right? Okay, so make sure your dog is healthy before you start any of these things. We want to make sure that our dog is not doing any of these things out of a health issue. Last one is a training option. For some dog behavior issues that persist, you will need to consult a dog behavior specialist. I have received dog behavior training. I have been able to assess the dogs when we get them from rescues and rehomes and pass that information on to my fosters and my assistants. So most owners turn to professionals to help deal with aggression, resource guarding, and separation anxiety. These experts can help with dog behavior training, no matter how severe or mild the condition may be. Aggression. A dog starts to be aggressive when they don't understand that you're the alpha. Either you have been submissive or you have been neglect in showing them that you are in control, so that they need to become aggressive because nobody in their mind is in control, okay? That means you need to be more consistent on your leash time. You need to be more consistent on correcting and directing when it happens. Resource guarding. Again, if they have to guard their resources, they don't believe that you're the alpha. They don't believe that you're in charge. They believe that you're a threat to them, and they have to stand up as the alpha and protect their stuff. That means that they fear you and that they're going to lose what they have. This is another reason why we just feed them in their kennel. Maybe that's not an option for you, but for our fosters, I recommend all my fosters feed the dogs in the kennel, because they've already went through enough in their transition. They don't need to have to worry about eating. Okay, we want to make sure our dogs are eating and drinking. So we feed dry food with the coconut oil, with the water in their kennels, covered, whatever, so that they have their isolated place to be, so they don't have to worry about anybody taking their food and they feel safe. Let's see, that, and separation anxiety. We should make sure that we kennel them. If they're having separation anxiety, they need to have a safe spot. They need to have a safe area. If they can't be kenneled, they need to be tethered to a secure area. And then when you're home, you need to be practicing and giving corrections so that behavior is understood, that that's not okay. Okay? You can also try to train them yourself. There are the ADA states that you can train your own service dog. So there is training. You can always, if you're wanting an assistance dog, a service dog, the ADA states that you can train your dog on your own. And we would love to come alongside you and help you do that. We do not charge the exorbitant fees that most trainers charge. We charge basic fees, pretty much in line with like Petco and PetSmart at $20 a class. And we want to set you up for success, because there was no resources when I needed the resources, and my heart and mission is to make sure that those that need the training and help get it. So that's my heart. Choosing the right approach and being consistent is vital. It is so important that you are consistent, because if you are not consistent, then they don't know what to expect. And then when they don't know what to expect, you don't know what they're going to do. So that means they don't know what you're going to do. You don't know what they're going to do. Great. That's a definite recipe for failure right there. So always bear in mind that you want to achieve what you want to achieve, and then find the best way to get there. Arm yourself with enough patience and avoid punishment. There's no punishment in training. We are correcting to bring about a correct behavior. We are not punishing to bring about pain. Okay, and we are not ignoring in hopes that it goes away, because it won't. It will grow. All right. Well, that ends our video 1 and dog behaviors. So I hope that you enjoyed that video, and come back and log in for video 2 is on list of dog behaviors. There are a whole list of dog behaviors and what to do for those. So we'll be going on to that video next. We'll see you in a little bit.